Welcome to Breeze Time with Kathy. Happy New Year! This is my first Breeze Time of the new year, and it is so wonderful to talk to you. New Year's is a time we make resolutions. Well, for one thing first, I think everyone is happy for last year to be over with. 2020 was a very, very challenging year, and will live in our memories as the year of the pandemic. First pandemic in 100 years. Well, I tell you, I saw a cute thing about down on Times Square where people were shredding the things they'd be so glad to get rid of from 2020, and what they hoped they'd get rid of in 2020 that wouldn't carry over into 2021. And they even had a 2020 with like a piñata that people were hitting and breaking and shattering into bunches of pieces, trying to get rid of their frustration. But every year, it's the beginning of a new year. It's a time we mark a new beginning, particularly after the celebration and enjoyment of the Christmas season. This is the time we often make resolutions. I know most years, and particularly in my adult life, I've made New Year's resolutions. And most years, I've never kept those New Year's resolutions. I don't think any of you are surprised. The most common things that people make resolutions about, according to the internet, are their weight, exercise, save money, live according to a budget, travel more, read more books, and live life to the fullest were among the top. I don't have the whole list in front of me, but nothing was surprising or unexpected. I have made some really bad resolutions in my time. Probably one of the worst New Year's resolutions I've made. I made when I was in seminary, and I was trying to become more spiritual and more devout. And I had read about spiritual meditation and about being still and knowing that I am God. That's a quote from the Psalms, be still and know that I am God. So I decided I would spend 15 minutes a day quieting my mind and opening it up to God and meditate. I couldn't do it for 1 minute, much less 15. Do you know how long 15 minutes is? It is tremendously long. And then every time I broke my, stray thoughts came into my mind, I'd reset my timer and try again. And I finally gave up. That New Year's resolution did not last any time at all. My mind would just be drifting all over the place. All these kinds of things. I am not a good one for trying to meditate. I've never been able to meditate real well. I've been able to focus on what I say or what I do. I actually focus on television. I focus on things. I focus on different things I'm doing so much that I'm often oblivious to what goes on around me, which used to drive my husband and now drives my son nuts. Because, like yesterday, just yesterday, I was putting the dishes away and I was arranging the cups on the shelf in the cabinet, and I'm doing that. And Michael just walked up behind me and said something, and I go, woo! And jump. And he got so mad. He said, "Why do you do that?" And I said, "You startled me. I have a terrible startle reflex." And he said, I know. And then he laughed. He said, "Well, one time, though, it saved me from being arrested." Long story. What happened was, gosh, this is back probably when Michael was 15 years old and 16 years old. He'd gone out in the evening, and he'd forgotten his key. So he was trying to get in through the gate, but the gate was locked. But if you jiggle the gate to the back fence, to the fence on the driveway pretty good, sometimes you can jiggle it loose. So there he was, jiggling the thing on I guess it was about midnight. He must have been older than that. He probably was about 18 or 19 years old when we were living in that house. And so I don't know what, he'd probably gone out to the store for something. And so he was jiggling the thing, trying to shake the fence gate loose. It was a wooden fence that was about 6 feet high, and he's trying to get it loose. And don't you know, the police drove up. And of course, they put their spotlight on him, and they call him over, and he said, no, I live here. Did he have his wallet on him? No. I gave him a lecture after that about how you should always have your wallet on. Well, I was sleeping in our bedroom. The window right over the head of our bed was facing the front yard. So they knocked and they knocked on the door, but I never heard them. Chuck and I were both asleep, and we didn't hear them, and we didn't know. So they came over and they tapped on the window. Well, when they tapped on the window, I go, "Oh!" and I jump, and, and the police officer says, "What was that?" And he goes, Michael says, "That was my mother. She does that all the time." And the police officers, the two of them, started laughing. And by the time I came around to the door, Chuck and I went around to the door, after Michael saying, "You need to come let me in. I've got, and the police officers were smiling. And as soon as, we identified Michael, they let him, they let him go. It was fine. But he said, "Yeah, your sternal reflex saved me one time." But this year's resolutions, well, I don't know. I wasn't going to do resolutions. There was a time about 4 or 5 years ago when I was pretty much given up on doing New Year's resolutions. But I was up visiting my uncle over New Year's. He lives in, he was 80 years old at the time, and he was in Philadelphia. And he said, "Kathy, what are you going to do this year? What are your plans?" And I said, "What do you mean plans? Like a New Year's resolution?" He said, "Well, maybe not exactly a resolution, but," he says, "if you don't think about something you want to do for the year, then believe me, the year's going to fly by so fast you won't accomplish anything." He said, "Every year I try to identify 1 or 2 things I'd like to do and accomplish during the coming year." At the moment he was going through Rosetta Stone, and he was learning Spanish. He already speaks Italian, but he wanted to learn Spanish also. And he said, "I'm going to, learn Spanish. That's my goal." But you ought to think about something, because the older you get, the faster time flies. And if you don't have goals in your life, then things just slip away from you. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I really do. That if we don't have goals, things do just slip away. Time slips away. Do we always meet the goals we have? No. A lot of times as we get halfway through it, we decide, no, there's something we want more, or what we thought we wanted is a little different, or our circumstances have changed and we don't need that anymore. The best New Year's resolution the best resolution I've ever made is to do a daily devotional. I gave up on the meditation. That didn't work for me. Because, I've even tried. They had this on one of my retreats I went to as a pastor. After I got ordained, the clergy would have to come out to the conference center, and we'd all get together and we'd have a retreat. And so they had us for this, this meditation, and the person was leading us through this meditation. He had us take off our shoes, and we went out and stood on the grass in front of the lake, and we were supposed to relax. And he starts telling us stuff like, imagine you're standing there. You're in green pastures. You're beside still waters. Your feet are rooted to the ground. Your head is raised toward the heavens and the hills. Imagine your hair. I was doing okay so far. Think about your hair. That the sheep of Bashan are grazing over your hair. And that just did it for me. when he mentioned the idea of critters in my hair, I completely lost it. And when I lost it, my friend, the other minister next to me, Truman, he lost it too, and we just couldn't keep it. I mean, the idea of of imagine the sheep of Bashan grazing through your grazing through your hair. I mean, sheep on the hills of Bashan. I was like, no, I can't do this, and that broke it for me. And I have to admit, I skipped the next couple of mornings when we were supposed to go do that session. I wasn't very good at it. But I have found devotionals I can really engage with. I now read the Bible every day and spend about 15 minutes reflecting on that. Sometimes I use different things to help me focus a thought or two. Oh, there's all these books on daily meditation, daily thoughts and reflections every day, and things like the Upper Room or the Daily Bread or these kinds of things. But mostly what I'm working on right now is I've got a Bible, and it's 1 year, and you read the Bible all the way through. Every day you do 4, 5 readings. You read Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, and Proverbs. So you have Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, and Proverbs, 4 readings every day. And what I do a little differently is I read it out loud. The reason I read it out loud is, for one thing, I hope it helps me practice my elocution and my pronunciation so that I'm a better speaker, and maybe I don't stumble and muddle over my words when I'm preaching. And the other reason I do it is it helps me focus. Because if I just try to read silently, I've gotten to where reading books often puts me to sleep. I doze off. I'm only 65 years old, folks, and I sit there with a book like reading a novel. And unless it's really riveting and engaging, I just go to sleep. I don't know how I got through seminary, because let me tell you, there were some really dull, dry books. I guess I had the pressure of knowing a grade-dependent one, but I read some really awful dry stuff when I was in seminary. You know, one of the jokes was it wasn't really seminary, they should call it cemetery, because it feels like your brain goes there to die. That didn't really happen to me. I found it very engaging and a time to really learn. I like to learn. I like to travel. And I get fired up about things. I get enthusiastic. I hope you do too. I hope you find something during this coming year that engages you, something that kind of gets you excited. I know this is a tough time right now, but by the grace of God, something will come to you. If you're good at meditating, then try being still and knowing that God is there, but you're a better person than me if you can manage more than about 2 or 3 minutes of that, of sitting in silence. I know they have a yoga class here, and a lot of people like the yoga class. It focuses on stretching and balance, but I think it also, the yoga teachers do focus on clearing your mind and trying to help you concentrate a little bit better. Those things are very important. I sure hope we can start to gather again sometime in this coming year. My New Year's resolutions this year are not all that surprising. They're not as extreme as they used to be. I'm a little kinder to myself than I was in the past. Not surprisingly, I want to exercise a little bit more. Am I going to go up and join a gym? No, done that. Wasting money on memberships. Never worked. No, can't do that. But I have resolved to try and walk the stairs if I've got 2 flights or less to go up. And if I've got 4 flights or less to go down, instead of taking the elevator, take the stairs. So maybe that'll add something onto it. And other kinds of exercises that I do. When I walk the dog, I exercise, and some other things I do. But to try and be conscious of that and do a little bit more. I'm a person who needs 8 hours of sleep at night. And I do so much better if I get my 8 hours on a regular basis. However, discipline's not my strong suit. And excuse me, that's my son calling. I'll get back to him. But self-discipline is not my strong suit. And I get to reading a book. Actually, what I'm doing these days is I'm listening to audiobooks. I'll be listening to an audiobook, and I'll be so engrossed that I want to just do one more chapter. Before you know it, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's not a good thing. It drains me, it messes me up. And so I'm much better if I go to bed between 10 and 11 o'clock every night and get up between 6 and 7 every morning. That's the best thing for me to do, and that's what I'm going to try to do a little more responsibly. I can always count on getting up at around 6 o'clock because Willie wants to be fed, my dog. And he's very insistent. And if he doesn't get fed, first he just kind of comes and he gets close to me. He comes and he sits on me in bed. And if that doesn't work, then he'll put his nose under my arm and start flicking it, just like that. Flick, good grief, Willie. And if that doesn't work, then he'll walk back and forth across my chest. He knows within 5 minutes, or within 5 to 10 minutes, when it's 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. And he's very insistent about getting fed. I wish I was as regular with my hours of sleep as Willie is with his hours of eating. Another thing, because I do want to lose weight, the doctor has told me, and you can see I've gained my COVID weight, and I had weight to lose before that. Don't want to set too high a goal. In my own mind, I'd love to lose 2 pounds a month or so. I just don't want to be too ambitious. And one thing that helps me with that is if I weigh every day. Well, I had my scale in an inconvenient place, so I moved it into my bathroom. The bathroom's small, but I found a place where I can make it fit. And that way I can weigh every morning. And I find that I'm just if I weigh every day, then I'm a little more thoughtful about the things I eat. And eating sensibly, of course, is my next one. That's really important. And try to eat sensibly. And my last one, I'll continue, of course, doing my daily devotional. But I really want to pray a little more intentionally every day with my devotional. I usually go down and I list all the people I've come in contact with during the day. At the end, just before I fall asleep, I pray for them. And I think about my interactions with them. Could they have been better? I thank God for the ones that are good, and I ask God to help me with the ones that didn't go so well. And pray for those people and people who are on my heart. I don't do that every night, but I'm really going to make a concerted effort to do that in 2021. Every night. As a matter of fact, I put something right next to my bed. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just a little post-it note that reminds me to do that before to do that sort of review at the end of each day before I go to sleep. We'll see. I hope it works. Because you see, prayer, no matter what else all the things we can't do because of COVID, I believe in the power of prayer. I believe I've seen prayer work. And I do know that it's a privilege. When you think about it, isn't it strange that God should give us the privilege that our prayers make a difference? Why should he do that? God's in control. He can handle everything. Why should it make a difference that we pray? But it does. It really does. The prayers of the faithful, we're told, are powerful and effective. And no matter how limited our lives may be, we can always pray for others and for ourselves. So I don't know what your resolutions would do, but I'll try to let you know as the year progresses how mine go. Till then, have a blessed new year.